Hey everybody, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth, as always with some ideas and insights, what to pay attention to when you're growing and scaling your business. So today, let's start with a number. So 46%. That's how many employees in a recent survey admitted that they are just pretending to work. So basically means logging hours, showing up to meetings, toggling between apps, but not actually doing anything of much consequence. So you might call this quiet quitting. We've talked about this before, but let's call it what it is: disengagement by design. Because here's the hard truth. If your people don't know what success really looks like, why their role matters, and how their effort connects to something bigger, they'll just do enough to stay out of trouble, because that's human nature. You know, that's what we all do when we're not clear. We're just going to pretend we do something or we try to do something. This doesn't even have to be anything nefarious. We try to do what we can to feel like we are doing a good job. But if we don't really know what that means, that's a little tough to do. So, you know, and guess what the response is of most business owners? They tighten the screws, they add more tools, they give more oversight, more performance tracking, but all that doesn't really turn your team into a highly performing team, right? It turns your team into productivity actors, kind of masters of looking busy. And that's not really going to get you what you need, because the real fix really is it starts way before someone even underperforms. It starts with how you lead and how you build your company culture. And of course, as we know, all that stuff starts much, much sooner. So let's talk about the culture of pretending, right? So pretending to work is the logical outcome of a broken system. And, you know, here's what that looks like. Like, employees are sitting in back-to-back Zoom calls with no clear outcomes, or that could be, if they're not on Zooms, that could mean back-to-back meetings, endless Slack conversations with zero movement. Or endless email conversations with zero movement, because again, it's completely unclear what the desired outcomes are. Another one is over documenting tasks while really not understanding and ignoring the true needle movers, which is of course what you need them to connect to. So this is what I call productivity theater. And most leaders are unknowingly directing the show here. And you wonder why. Because the team doesn't really know what actually matters. They don't really know what the KPIs are that they're responsible for, that they're in their boathouse, right? The mission is vague or forgotten, and the why behind their work is completely invisible. And they might have been taught at some point or told at some point what that was, but it was maybe their first day of work or when they had their first interview, and it hasn't really been spoken about since. And look, in far too many companies, the only feedback an employee ever gets is task-based, and it tends to be punitive. So you only hear from anybody if you did something wrong. And that, of course, is not exactly highly engaging. And, they quickly learn here that the goal isn't impact. The goal here is compliance. So they feel like as long as they do everything they're told, they're doing a good job, but that's not what gets you a highly performing team. So and then you may, as the business owner, you may think people just don't care anymore. You have no idea how often I hear that our clients think that their team just doesn't care, that they just phone it in, that they are just there for a paycheck. But the truth, honestly, is they could care if you showed them exactly why it matters. So, let's kind of wind back a little bit and let's talk about where this actually starts, because it starts way before this very problem. It's because it starts when you actually get somebody in the door. Hiring somebody because they have experience is honestly only half the equation. And yes, of course you want competence. You want somebody who can come in and knock it out of the park for you. But without alignment to your mission, to your vision, experience alone can turn into apathy fast. And ask yourself this, right? Did I hire someone excited about why they are in this role? So one of the questions that I tell our clients to ask anybody they're hiring is like, why do you want to work here? What's so exciting about it? And what do you see yourself contributing to the company at the highest level, right? So if you don't ask those questions, and if they don't come in with the understanding of what that is, well, we've already lost them. So ask yourself that, and then ask yourself along with that, did I share our vision clearly, or did I just describe the task? So often when you look at a job posting, it's just like, here's your task list, right? This is what you're responsible for, but it's not outcomes. It's just, here are your to-dos, right? And did I filter for values and motivation, or just skills? And for some bigger companies, this might be a little bit more common to really look at, what are people bringing to the table that's not just skills, but a lot of times for smaller companies, they're just looking at, can this person do this certain thing? And, here's the contrast though, because when you hire somebody who's truly a mission and vision fit, they will ask, how can I improve this? They will actually think this through with you. They'll become strategic about it. And when you're hiring somebody who's task only, they will they will ask, what exactly do you want me to do? Meaning, you have to tell them exactly what they have to do at all times, which also means when you're not telling them because you're not there, you have something else to do, they don't really know how they can move the needle for you. So mission fit employees truly take ownership, and task takers, they wait for instructions, and if they don't come, they stall. And honestly, to no fault of their own, if you haven't really shared that with them, because they don't really know what else to do. They don't really understand how what they're doing fits into the bigger picture and fits into the strategy. So hiring for mission fit also means that you have to be loud and clear about the mission. If it's fuzzy to you, it's invisible to them. And this is not just something that I'm saying to sound good. It's not fluff. This is foundational. So with all this said, like, how do you actually create accountability? And I'm going to talk about something I've talked about a lot, the 5 C's that are so important, so absolutely essential to getting accountability, to getting somebody who thinks with you and who's strategic about what they're doing. But let's get tactical for a moment. So here's how you stop people from pretending and start them actually performing with purpose. So let's go to the 5 C's. The first one is clarity. They need to know, what is the mission? What does success actually look like this quarter, this year, in the next 3 years? What does each person's role mean, and how does it contribute in getting to that outcome? Second one is context. Why now? Why this particularly? So help your team understand what's happening in the business and in the industry, so that they're not just doing stuff blindly, they're responding, and they can respond intelligently. The third one, of course, is communication. It's not about doing more updates. It's about better updates, about updates that are tied to the mission, that are tied to the outcomes, tied to the metrics, and delivered in a way where people can really act on them. The fourth one is certainty. This is about data. This is about metrics. This is about scoreboard. This is about something tangible. Certainty gives your team the confidence to act boldly because they know where they stand and what they're aiming for. And confidence, honestly, certainty comes from you. It is something that you give them. You have to give them these metrics, this tangible stuff, because otherwise they're just trying, but they don't really know what they're going for. And then 5, of course, is consistency. If you talk your vision once a year, or you shared it with them when you hired them, or when you looked at their resume, and or like you do a retreat once a year, and then you disappear, you've already lost them. People don't remember what you said. They remember what you repeat. Let me repeat that. People don't remember what you said. They remember what you repeat. I mean, everybody's heard this before. People have to hear something like 20 something times before it actually is something that they remember. So these 5 C's, and I know I'm a broken record about them, but they are so absolutely essential. When you practice them, you're not managing, you are leading. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you can't just manage, because that means you're a taskmaster. You have to become a leader, because that's the only way you will be growing your people. And that also means you grow more leaders, where you're not the one who's carrying everything on your shoulders. Weird here. And when you pair that with human needs theory, which we've been talking about in the last few weeks, then you're designing a culture that actually works. So let's talk about that one for a minute. Human needs at work. This is really, we just talked about this a bunch in our mastermind. It is what leadership coaching is about. It is the hidden blueprint for motivation and accountability. So every employee, whether they admit it or not just every employee, every human has these 6 needs. And, there's like Tony Robbins is one who talks about it a lot. There's tons and tons of people who have authored and designed this. And this is kind of my own spin on it. But first one is certainty, because what people want to know, what they ask is, am I safe? Do I understand the rules of the game? Do I know how my performance is measured, what it means? Second one is variety or uncertainty, right? It's the polar opposite. Is there something new here to challenge me? Am I learning? Am I stretching? Am I contributing in new ways? Which is also what gets me excited, what gets me interested, what makes me feel like there's something to reach for. The third one is connection. Do I belong here? So this is love. This is community. Do I feel like part of the team that supports each other? Am I part of an environment that I actually want to be in? The fourth one is significance. Does what I do matter to someone? Does my leader notice? Do I matter, right? We all want to know that when we go home and we have put in, hours of work, and we have given it a lot of effort, we want to know that this actually matters, that this is important. That's what our sense of fulfillment and contribution comes from, because contribution is the next one. Am I making a difference? Not just getting things done. And that's why when you give people a whole bunch of tasks that are seemingly unrelated because you're not connecting the dots for them, that's how you lose people quickly. And that's when you have a team that is underperforming, because everybody is just kind of phoning it in and doing the absolute minimum. And then number 6, of course, is growth. And that's so important, especially with the younger generations, because they want to know, can I become more here? Or is this just a job? And if you have an employee who feels like this is just a job, they're not wondering about, how much more could I be? How much more could I become? How they don't know, how do I directly contribute to the company vision in the future? How's what I do, how does that actually show up in results? They want to know about that. They want to know that they have a career that actually grows them. So when these needs are unmet, people check out. And when they're met and when they actually understand them, they lean in, they give it their all, they show up above and beyond. And that's what we all want as business owners. So one of my clients recently gave one of our junior team members ownership over a small but really visible initiative tied to the customer experience. And that one shift really lit a fire under her butt. Why? Because it hit every single need on that list. So a lot of times you think to inspire people, to motivate them, you have to give them a raise. I hear people complain about this over all the time, but that's not what it is. And you've heard me say this a million times before. people's performance is only minimally related to money. Of course, you need to pay them well. Of course, it needs to be fair, but you don't need to give everyone a raise. You need to give them a reason. So the next step in this is, and I have alluded to this already, you need to stop managing and start scaling with the new tools that are available to you. And the good news is there's some really amazing new tools out there that make your life, or can make your life, so much easier, that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, that can free you from the daily grind. And here's the punchline. Most small business owners know they should be doing this, but they don't because they're underwater. Like everything we've talked about, right? You probably know you're doing this. And maybe in your mind, this is something you get there when. And of course, that when is moving out further and further and further. And actually, the results are starting to decline because anytime you grow and you don't have the stuff that we're just talking about, it gets worse. So too many of you are still managing your schedules manually. You're answering every customer email. You are reviewing every team task. You're controlling emails. You're writing the SOPs. You're handling the client communications. They're stuck in what I call the CEO trap, because you're actually not acting as the CEO at all. And you're just too busy doing stuff that keeps you from leading. So what I want to point out again, and I know for many of you, AI has been, it's this big thing that everybody's constantly talking about. It's scary and it's fascinating, it's terrifying, it's amazing, but it can really change the game for you if you're using it as an intelligent tool. Because with the right systems, you can automate a lot of stuff. You can, and here's the big one, and this is really what I'm driving for, you can free up strategic thinking time. We've been talking about this in the last few episodes. You need to have at least 20% of blank, of free time, of unfilled time on your calendar, because if you don't have that, you can't be creative, you can't be innovative, you can't think when you're constantly wall to wall. So we really need to free up your time so you can start doing this, and then you can reinforce these 5 C's across your organization. So our AI business scaling blueprint is an amazing tool that doesn't replace your team. That's not what it's meant to do. It's also not replacing you. It elevates your team by getting you out of their way. So imagine this. You have weekly KPIs that are auto-generated and explained, and everybody understands how they relate to the bigger picture. You have team check-ins that are supported by data and not gut feelings, and definitely not drama. You have hiring pipelines that are built around culture and not chaos. And honestly, that's not the future. That's what's happening right now. And if you are not participating, you're already way behind. So look, I mean, you can be part of this number, right? You can have a team where 46% of your employees are just kind of phoning it in and doing the bare minimum. And by the way, that the difference between in-person and remote was very slim. So this number almost didn't vary depending on what your situation is. Because if your team is pretending to work, here's the hard truth. They're not failing you. You might be failing to lead them. They're not failing you. You might be failing to lead them. And it's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things as a leader. So we talked about the 5 C's, and we talked about human needs theory, and bring those two together for optimum results. So this week you could start here. This week, pick one of the 5 C's that you've been neglecting. And I'm going to say most of you have been neglecting them all because it seems like it's too much to do. It takes too much time. You don't have the bandwidth. You're too tired for it. So just pick one of them And then ask your team a bold question. You could ask them, do you know exactly how your work impacts company success? Ask that question and then see what they come back with. Do you know exactly how your work impacts company success? And then listen. Listen carefully. Their answer will really show you exactly where you need to begin. And I know many of you would much rather lead than just manage, because that's really where the fun starts. That's really when you can watch people grow. That's when you can feel like your effort is actually going somewhere, and your effort in developing them leads to your life being so much easier and so much more interesting, because now you can actually focus on doing why you got into business to begin with, is by making your business bigger and better and growing it and making more impact and serving more customers, making more money, making more profit, all those things. But you can't do that alone. And you have to get your team into a place where they can truly participate, or it'll always feel like you're the only one doing work. So if you want your team to care without constantly having to chase them, you have to start building systems that create the space for true leadership. And we have a great tool for you. It is incredibly affordable. Go to aibusinessscalingblueprint.com/boost. aibusinessscalingblueprint.com/boost, and get the tools. Reclaim your time. Lead the way your business and your people really need you to do. So try that, start there, and look at how your week will actually start changing if you're consistent. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.